Let me ask you, first of all, what you make of what we're hearing about the way that Daniel Abed Khalifa, who is awaiting trial on serious charges, the way he was able to get away.
Well, there's some very odd features to this incident. First of all, the actual security failure that led to his escape is almost more important than the person himself. Yes, he was in prison and he is accused of crimes related to the Terrorism Act and also the Official Secrets Act. I think, relatively speaking, his crimes, against the major terrorists in prison are minor, but it's still pretty odd that he actually ended up in Wandsworth Prison, which is a Category B prison. It's described as a reception and resettlement prison. You would have expected somebody who is a potential national security risk by nature of the offences to go to a prison like Belmarsh Prison, which is southern England's main remand centre for prisoners who are accused of terrorist offences. But it's not impossible that because of the risk that was judged to him, obviously wrongly, he ended up in Wandsworth Prison. What seems to be completely inconceivable, though, is that a person with that sort of profile was given a job in the prison kitchen. The prison kitchen is a highly prized job. It pays relatively well, and therefore there's a lot of competition for it. And anybody that goes to work in a prison kitchen where you're expected to work with a high degree of autonomy, and of course you're in close proximity and use very large knives, for example, must go through a security vetting process. I mean, one of the things that you didn't mention was that I used to be head of security at Wandsworth back in the mid-90s. So I'm quite familiar with the process back then that would have been used to make sure the right people got those jobs. Why he was given that position of trust seems completely crazy, frankly, given the charges that he was facing.
And then we're hearing about the way that he got away, which sounds like an extraordinary scene from a film of actually strapping himself underneath a food delivery van to get away. And I guess that further highlights the lax security there was in that kitchen environment of the prison.
Well, this is a catastrophic security system failure. There's no two ways about it. I mean, it might help your listeners to kind of understand the process that a van allegedly he escaped on would go through to get to the kitchen. And that is that it would go through the double gates, the big gates that you see in those iconic pictures of Wandsworth Prison, into an airlock where there are double gates in front of the van and behind them. So it's a sterile area where the nature of the visit can be ascertained and the authority to make that visit. And also, the gate staff are specifically employed to inspect that vehicle, because obviously we want to stop illicit things getting into as well as out of a prison. So the contents would be inspected. Typically, then you would have an escort that would take that vehicle through the second series of double gates. So the prison has always got one level of perimeter security while it travels through that zone into what we would call the sterile area of the prison, where prisoners aren't allowed, and then would drive round to the kitchen, presumably going through a series of gates in the inner perimeter, and then the goods would be dropped off. And it would be the responsibility of the catering manager, whoever's in charge of the kitchen, the prison staff, to account for all those prisoners before the reverse happened and that van went back into the airlock. Now, the critical thing here is, in the airlock, and I can remember this from my previous job there, the staff are specifically tasked to make sure, and there is assistance here, that there are no prisoners in the van, because it's a clear and obvious security risk area, something like the kitchen or a vehicle going in and out, that there might be a prisoner concealed in the vehicle. So, for example, on the ceiling of the airlock in the gate, there is a large concave mirror, which would give any of the staff that are working there a full view of the roof to make sure there was nothing or nobody hiding on the roof. Similarly, there would be a mirror on an extendable pole to make sure that there was nobody hiding underneath the vehicle, and the vehicle's contents would also be inspected. So I'm talking about layers of physical security and human security. Also, all of these operations are overseen by multiple cameras inside the prison itself. which are viewed from a central control room.
So it seems even more incredible that he managed to escape